Today's guest built her first six-figure company at 11 years old, and now in her 30s, she has companies collectively valued at over $1 billion. What she told me on the show today, she says most founders at her level are too scared to say publicly. Jess Mah, welcome to the Grateful Podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Great to be here. Great to chat. And awesome that you're getting to do this from your dorm room, by the way.
Yes, it's pretty cool. It's authentic. I know you talk a lot about authenticity. I think I'm at a point where soon it'll be much more professional setups, but there's something cool about learning with somebody from their home and just being with them as they ask people questions. I think that contributes to the overall authenticity of the conversation.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I agree with that. And generally speaking, I think a lot of the content out there is not like the real content. And we talked a little bit about this beforehand because people on the internet are weird, right? And so unfortunately, like the best secrets you're never going to like hear about on YouTube. Um, but that's okay. That just means that there's still going to be value in getting to like actually know people one-on-one, like have lunch meetings, have coffee meetings, fly somewhere and take someone you want to meet out for dinner and then ask them the real follow-up questions. And those secrets you're not going to be able to find with like going to ChatGPT and saying, hey, tell me all of, Jess Mah's best business secrets. Like it's just not there. And I think that's kind of beautiful because we're getting a little lazy in the age of AI. We think AI will give us everything that we want and everything that we need. That's just simply not true. And now more so than ever, all it's making these in-person relationships and genuine connections more precious. So I think that's cool.
Yeah, I heard you talk about on a previous podcast how you get all of your ideas from actually talking to people. And you'll even pay to talk to experts about things so you can learn more and solve a problem that way. So beyond just the idea of connection, you have to connect in order to be able to solve a problem, because you can't find a problem that people need help with if you're not connecting with them. So why do you think so many people are opting just for the ChatGPT beyond just the fact that it's the easy type, when all you have to do is talk to people to figure out what they really want?
I think there's a bit of an intimidation factor as well when it comes to meeting people live. I mean, for background, what I do for a living is I meet really cool people. I brainstorm business opportunities with them. And sometimes it's their idea, sometimes it's my idea. And then if we think it's cool, then we go build it. In fact, right before you and I hopped on this call, I was on a call with someone who knows a ton of YouTube creators with millions and millions of followers. And he happens to be, now at least a friend of mine. And we just do like half an hour, hour and a half long brainstorms on business ideas. And I think we found one that we're stoked about. And he came to me. He's like, hey, Jess, can we sit down? I've got like 3 ideas I want to pitch you. And I told him that I thought all of them sucked, but one of them, if shifted a certain way, I think could be a really great idea. And so we jammed on that. It took us about 5 hours of brainstorming, by the way, to get that into a place where I'm like, wow, this can mint like tens of millions of dollars a year with no investors. And that process, though, that patience required to take 5 hours with this guy, I don't think a lot of people have that patience. I think a lot of really busy people, they say, oh, I'll give you half an hour of my time, or I'll give you an hour of my time. But to really get those golden nuggets, it's at the 5 hour mark, the 10 hour mark, where you get those best insights. And people don't want to wait that long. It's kind of like in sales outreach. If you listen to a lot of sales outreach experts, they say that if you cold email your customers, it's on the 7th or 8th cold outreach email before the other side replies, right? So if that's the case, people are giving up way too soon when they only send 2 or 3 cold emails to try to get in touch with someone, right? And same thing in business ideation. It's the hour 5 to hour 10 mark.
So, what do you talk about for 10 hours? Because I think most people, yeah, they are having the quick meetings and I see it all the time, especially which is a little bit contradictory to what you said, the most successful people I'm seeing, they're like, "Oh, I'll give you 15 minutes of my time." Or these really tiny blocks. What do you talk about for the 10 hours, the 5 to 10 hours that gets you to that point? Because I think I could have a conversation with someone for 10 hours and talk about nothing, right? But you have to tailor it in a certain way in order to get the value that you're getting out of these conversations.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like a dance, right? I think, this gives me this idea, Jack, that I think at one point maybe I should just record this process where I sit down with like different people and like we just do this for 5 hours straight and see what happens. Because that's the only way to really demonstrate this. But in a nutshell, I think it's just like brainstorming and like, riffing off each other. Like, well, what if we did this instead? Or like, hey, what if we tried, this product offering? How do you think your customers would respond? Right. Or, so it's like asking a lot of questions, hearing a lot of answers, and then coming up with new follow-up questions and doing that. Like that can easily be hours and hours and hours. Just because like I have a lot of questions. Like I want to understand, you know, um, all the different ways we can make a real business out of something. So, um, and then also it's using like Claude or ChatGPT in real time. Like, all right, hey, ChatGPT, like we have this idea. It still sucks. Here's why I think it sucks. I think the market might, not be big enough, or I think this business model is not great, or here's our product vision, but it doesn't solve a big enough problem. Help give us more ideas to like tease out our brainstorming. So I use it as a sparring partner a lot,
Hmm.
for this in particular. Um, and so that will then create another few hours of content. So yeah, you're not going to run out of time. And also you're doing
Yeah.
it in chunks, right? You're doing like say an hour and a half, and then you have another hour and a half follow up. And so it's not
You have
all
time to
in a
think
5
on
hour
it.
chunk.
Right. You have
Yeah.
time to think on it in between and maybe contribute new ideas that came up in that time. And it seems like you're always thinking of ideas. I mean, even right there in that answer, you said, "Oh, well, I have an idea. Maybe I could record it." Right? Your brain is idea focused. You're always doing that. You came up with an idea at 11, which is insane, and you had 4 employees at that age. I can relate in some not crazy way, but I had 4 employees at the age of 17, and I don't know how you felt with that, but I hid my age from my employees. I did not want them to know that I was 17. Maybe they're watching this now and like, "Oh my god, Jack, you were young." But I felt somewhat embarrassed, but I think it's cuz I was older. At that point, like as an 11-year-old, there's nothing to hide. You have to have the idea and have the utmost confidence in it. So is this just something that's been built into you from a very young age?
Yeah, I mean to be clear, like, I had part-time folks when I was in my teens building businesses, and they're just random people I met online, and I could just
Yeah.
PayPal them money. So it wasn't like a high bar. And as long as someone gets paid, they see money in their PayPal account, they were happy to do some work.
Right. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, I've always been into business creation really as an art form. I think a lot of people see business more in a like, we need to create a business to make a certain amount of money. And,
Yeah.
and while that pressure certainly exists, um, I think it is more fun when it's treated as an art form. And,
Hmm.
a business doesn't have to be big for it to still be widely successful, right? Like if a business creates a new lifelong friendship for you, if a business like really changes the lives of a lot of its customers, that's like really successful. That's massive.
Yeah. So what is your
Like,
why behind business? Because you're still going. You're incredibly successful. You've built an amazing career. And part of what is so interesting is you've built businesses in places where I would find boring, like in these niches that don't really. You're like, what are you talking about? That's a thing, right? So what is it that drives you to keep going and to keep continuing to build?
Yeah, I mean, right now I've got a ton of new businesses that are being launched this year. And why I'm excited about it is because all of these co-founders who I'm partnering with on these businesses, they um, they see this opportunity with AI. I'm able to help them bring that to life. And I'm seeing how these people are like so excited,
Mm,
and that brings me a lot of joy. So a lot of this is just like helping make other people more successful. It makes me really happy and seeing them win. Um, and so I'm moving from having to be like the entrepreneur and the person who's like the person who runs that business, to like I'm actually behind the scenes. I'm like behind the curtain, and I really want them to be able to take off with it. And so yeah, that's the common thread for me, Jack. And it's kind of like, why do business coaches do what they do? Right? They like to kind of
yeah,
see their clients grow, and that's the same with me. I want to see my entrepreneurs grow and do cool things, and also, these businesses like make impact very quickly. Yeah, it's just you could bring these things to life within 30, 60 days potentially. And so I
it's
think
amazing.
that we're in a very special time in that sense, Jack. So and now, I get calls from like right after I talked to you, I've got a billionaire who reached out to me and said, "Hey, like, I really want to bring X to life. I'm not going to say what it is, but it's healthcare related. And he's got tens of millions of dollars he's put behind this idea already, but it's a total mess. And he needs help building out the management team and making it so it could actually, be a standalone business that takes in smart money." And so I'm like, yeah, I'll help you out with that. So I just get these calls all the time, Jack, and I'm just trying to help people. And how I get paid on it, like I don't really know sometimes coming in. And that's okay.
At what point did people start to reach out to you and say, "Hey, Jess, I have this idea. I want your help in building this. I want your help in creating something awesome." Because I know it hasn't always been that way.
Yeah, I think I got more calls after I started doing a lot of just like giving back to the entrepreneur community and the investor community with no expectation of anything back. So just like doing favors, like showing up and um doing, free advice calls for people, and people are like, "Oh
Mm,
yeah, would you like help talk to my son about their, business idea?" Like things like that where there's no business that's going to come from that. But you
right.
show up and you're like, "You know what? I'm going to help you and your son out because I care about you and because why not?" And then 3 months later, that person's like, "You know what? Like one of my business partners or someone I'm doing a deal with is this big shot who needs your help. Would you talk to them?" And then
Yeah.
that then leads to a deal, you see? So so
Yeah.
so all of those chances you have to help someone out, even if it doesn't seem like it's gonna be relevant, it leads to stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and one of the things that's the most clear that through lines your entire story, and I think is so cool, is that you have always been a people first person, and that's how you're getting your success, right? And people are really scared. I hear a lot of fear in the people I talk to. Like, what is AI going to replace? And the truth is, I think the most successful people are always people first, always relationship first, where you're wanting to build genuine connection, wanting to serve first, and business comes as a byproduct of that service.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm not worried about having to do like a lot of outreach. I don't do any outreach to like look for opportunities. Like I already have too many. I have a whole like list in my head of dozens of these, opportunities. And if anything, the question is, how do I narrow that down? So I don't have any scarcity would be the word. I don't
Yeah,
feel that scarcity. And it's also just easier to to live and operate this way where I'm not worried about like where the next thing will come from. Um, and yeah, I think I just magnetize it. So it sounds like not very scientific. And I think a lot of people when they look for content, they're trying to figure out like what is like the trick. It's like there's no real trick. It's like just over a long stretch of time, do a lot of things for free, offer a lot of favors, help people out, and then like people think about you.
If you're not willing to do more than you're being paid for, you'll never be paid for more than you're doing. And I think that's one of my favorite quotes I tell people when they talk about that stuff because I mean you've lived that. I think where I'm really curious, and when I showed some of my friends who are building things, your profile and what you're doing, what they were super curious about as well is with these ideas that so many people are talking about these days, where they're these niche and specific maybe ideas that have nothing related to what you're interested in, right? Like, I don't know why chiropractors always come up when people are talking about stuff, but like vertical systems for chiropractors. How do you go about finding these obscure things? And then when once you've got that, how do you keep the motivation going through that? Because I know people that have started things and like, I just have no emotional connection to what I'm doing. Where do you create that emotional connection in these things that don't have anything that's related to your life so far?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's from these people who call me saying they need support and they made money in this obscure area. Okay. So they say, hey, I have something I'm working on in this obscure area or something I want to work on in this obscure area. Can you help me? And
Mm,
so then I can come in and help offer support. But it's usually their idea and their domain expertise, not mine. That's the
mm,
key.
okay,
And yeah, I don't come up with those myself. I don't try to
right.
brainstorm with chat gpt. Like that's not the way to do it. You have to find someone who's like just done that for 20 years and that's like what they obsess about, and partner with them.
Yeah,
So I don't do anything. I used to try to do stuff on my own, and those things would not be as successful as the projects where I'm teaming up with someone who's already like been successful in a esoteric area.
interesting. So for someone that's looking to create something like that, right? And I think a lot of young people, they don't really have expertise in anything. So they would need to find somebody. How do you recommend they go about that process?
Yeah, if you're less experienced and you're trying to meet people in esoteric areas, I mean, it's from a lot of conferences, right? Like I'm on the road traveling all the time, meeting random people. So you kind of have to be open to that. I go to a lot of entrepreneur dinners and I meet a lot of great people I'm collaborating with just from sitting next to them randomly at these events. Um, and then also I host my own events, several a year. I just had one in Park City last weekend that was widely successful, and
Nice.
have a few people where I'm looking at doing opportunities with some of them because of this retreat. And so yeah, I'll probably do 4 or 5 of those 3 or 4 day long retreats per year because it's such a great way for me to meet cool people. Um, and you could start that anytime. I mean, when I was in college, at UC Berkeley studying computer science, um, I would invite speakers to chat with the student group, and then I would just become friends with the speaker,
Yeah,
you know? And I threw a conference, right? I started TEDx Berkeley, like the TED Talks, but at UC
yeah,
Berkeley.
yeah.
And, all the speakers became friends of mine. And and then I hosted 2 hackathons. Um, so like you just create an excuse to bring people and you don't need any credentials to do that. So that's how I got the idea to like bring people together. And when I
Right.
call people, I say, please show up. They do. And if they don't show up to the first thing, I've got like 4 other options for them to show up to something. And they're different, right? Like I have one thing that's called AI Sleepaway Camp.
Okay.
It's literally a multi-day weekend trip for AI nerds. And
Yeah.
so I'm bringing, like amazingly brilliant AI nerds. Um, mostly in San Francisco, to just
Mm-hmm.
like hang out and work on stuff for a weekend, right?
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, so it's stuff like that where I'm meeting cool people.
I'm running this podcast, I'm running a business, and I'm also a full time neuroscience student. Sometimes, no matter how grateful and ambitious I am, my brain just doesn't want to keep up. And I know that you know the feeling of having all these things you value so much that you just don't feel like you have the time or the focus to get done. And that's exactly why I take Magic Mind every single morning. It's a mental performance shot. It's got the adaptogens, the nootropics, and the time release caffeine so that you don't get the jitters or the 3 p.m. crash, but you get all the energy, all the clarity, and all the focus to accomplish your goals. And I've been taking it every single morning because of those exact things. You guys know that I would never promote a brand that I didn't fully trust would get you the results that you're looking for. So if you're looking for more performance, more clarity, more focus, then go to magicmind.com/Wagoner20. Put Wagoner20 in at checkout and get 20% off a package of these shots or 48% off a subscription. Go try it and let me know what you think. Let's get back to this awesome episode. You have been on magazine covers, you've built companies worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and you've said publicly that you still feel like you're not doing enough and that you feel like a lot of your colleagues that are in the same scenario aren't necessarily open about that feeling. What does it feel like when you have everything that you've been told is supposed to make you happy, but you don't always feel that reflected on the inside?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that most entrepreneurs, they think they want FU money,
Hmm.
right? And the phrase FU money basically means you have enough money to do whatever you want and then never need to work
Yeah.
again. Okay. And I've concluded that everyone who says that and then obtains that still tries to get more, and they're
Hmm.
still not happy, or as happy as they know they're capable of being. And I know this because I've been in CEO groups and circles where people sell their companies and make bajillions of dollars. And we ask them, how happy are you on a 1 to 10 scale today? And the day or month after they have the FU money, they typically say they're a 9 out of 10, sometimes a 10 out of 10 for that month.
Okay.
And then the month after that, their score drops to either an 8 or a 7.
Hmm.
And then oftentimes it just lingers at whatever their prior baseline was. Because we
Right.
track these
Hedonic
scores over
adaptation.
exactly, it just reverts back to the mean. And we know this because we have actual data and because I've been tracking this data, on
Hmm.
spreadsheets for over a decade talking to these CEOs. Okay. And so I saw this happen so many times. I realize now people want something different. They want, and a lot of the time, it's not for everyone. Some people just are addicted to the adrenaline rush, but a lot of people want FU peace.
Hmm.
Okay.
I like that. Yeah.
They want to feel um, relaxed in their body. They want to have a calm nervous system. And yeah, they want to have some meaning as well. And it doesn't have to come from business. In fact, a lot of meaning comes from community, from giving away things or giving like your time and your energy and your expertise for free, right? And just doing business though does not cure any of that. So that's what kind of creates this reversion to the mean slash, people realizing or going into depressions and slumps after they have the FU money. Um, because it was really something else that they were after. So
What have you noticed about the happiest CEOs and founders?
the happiest CEOs and founders, I'd say first of all, I'd say the vast majority of them, I would not say are in the very happy class. Um, the average score of high performing CEOs, and by high performing, I would say they're doing at least 10 million in revenue or more, and their business is valued at least 50 million or more. Um, I would say is between, say, a 5 out of 10 and a 7.5 out of 10 would be like the mean.
Okay.
I don't think that's a great score.
What's that
And
compared to for like an average employee at the company, for example? Do you have that data?
I don't have that data. And I'd be hesitant to speculate because I just don't know.
Right. Yeah.
But I could talk about why they're less happy. And the cited reasons include typically triggers as it relates to work, fear, scarcity, um, and just being chronically triggered by work problems. And the ones who have higher scores are typically less exposed to those day-to-day issues. So
Hmm.
I believe Richard Branson, if surveyed over the course of his career, would typically score in the 8 or 9 plus range. Yes, he has a lot of business problems and triggers that come up, but he's a bit less exposed because he prides himself on partnering with great CEOs for every underlying company and version group,
Okay.
right? And so I studied that, and that made me more excited about that model of building business. Some people like to operate and be CEO. I'm personally not one of them. Um, I won't say I'll never do that again because there's a chance I would, but I think it's more challenging to get to FU piece if you're directly CEO of a company, just given
Hmm.
how the world works, unfortunately.
Yeah. So I find that fascinating that the people that are less involved are often closer to that piece. It's like you're not the general that's in on the battlefield. You're kind of removed a little bit, which is contrary to what I think a lot of us would think about, right? But I'm actually fascinated by that finding.
Yeah. Well,
That's really interesting.
let me give you another way to think about it. So there's this everyone understands financial diversification, right? Which
Yeah.
is you have income sources and investments in very different things. Well, you could also have fulfillment, happiness, and peace diversification as well, right? Like if you have a family, right? You have community, you have you have uh exercise and food and your spiritual community, and there are all these other things that bring joy and happiness to your life outside of business. You're less fragile when business is not going well. But if business is all you do, like I talked to a founder yesterday who built $1 billion company in Silicon Valley, and this person's on antidepressants, and this person, um, all they do is work all the time, and they don't
Yeah.
work out every day. They don't have a bunch of other personal interests. They don't have diversification
Hmm.
here. So this person's happiness is too linked to business going up and down.
Right. And hustle culture will tell you that that's fine because you need to be completely all in every area. Did you have those moments in your career where you were like no sleep? I find founders cannot sleep. I know you recently posted about that. But people's sleep that are building things is terrible. That's one of the things. Already a prerequisite kind of setting you up to fail that diversification test.
Yeah, sleep is the most important thing to prioritize. And so my recommendation is watch podcasts about sleep. There are a lot of them. Brian Johnson talks about sleep a lot. The Sleep Doctor is amazing. Um, and like really optimize. Like I love my 8 sleep, which optimizes
Yeah.
my temperature. And you know, I take glycine as a supplement before I go to sleep. That helps me a lot. no phone or looking at a device for at least an hour before bedtime. Like, just do the basics. Most people don't do the basics. Make sure you allocate 9 hours for sleep, because you know you're only going to get 8 hours of sleep because of, like, just waking up in the middle of the night or whatever. You need to block off 9 hours, not 8 hours. That's the biggest change I made in the past few years. That's made the biggest difference if you want 8 hours of sleep. Um, and then in the morning, same thing. You don't go to work right away. Like, block off an hour. I mean, this morning I had an hour and a half to just walk my dog, get, a latte, and hang out and not do anything useful.
Yeah.
And Jeff Bezos, he talks about doing that too. And you'll do better work. You're going to be a lot more focused. And hustle culture is talked about a lot in Silicon Valley, especially right now. And this unicorn founder I was referring to, um,
Yeah.
this person um, told me how they have been working way too hard, like 996, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week, totally burned out. And it actually led to the business not performing better over the past 18-month period. It was net worse for the business, because it led them to taking shortcuts, taking on customers who churned out, and also because of the burnout, the team is not working as effectively and not able to sustain a high pace now. So I think we're going to see more stories of this, but these founders in hustle culture are not going to write about it or admit to it publicly, because think about it. If they wrote about that and blogged about it, then they wouldn't get more funding.
Mm,
And
yeah.
so
So
they're stuck.
we're incentivized to put on an act of being all
Yes.
right, where inside we might not be feeling like that.
Correct. So Silicon Valley rewards the act,
Hmm.
punishes you if you are like, I'm into work-life balance. So you can't use the word like
Mm.
work-life balance. You have to just say, I work really hard all the time, right? Because that correlates more strongly with getting funded, being successful. And
Right.
so we have this echo chamber where then the truth of what's actually going on doesn't become public information.
Hmm.
And the only way to understand what's actually happening is to have private one-on-one conversations with genuine friends,
Yeah.
you know? I
Yeah.
mean, I could talk
I,
about it because I'm not a CEO of a company and I don't really care what anyone thinks, you know?
but it hasn't
So
always
I
been
talk
that
about this
way,
all the
I
time.
imagine. Yeah.
No, no. When I was a funded CEO, I was definitely a lot more close to the chest on matters like this. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, part of why I like talking to people like you is because I can share more openly and not care about, the fact that, like, you know, if being more honest, helps people, then that is the best thing to do versus like trying to
Mm.
optimize for lying about saying, I mean, look, I did work 996 for about 3 months just to try it out. And then I realized that it wasn't sustainable and I shouldn't do 996 anymore. So what
Yeah.
I'm doing right
Yeah.
now is probably doing 8:30, 7:30, right? So what is that? That's like 9, 8, 5. So,
Yeah.
5 days. And then on the weekend, like, yeah, I'm watching AI YouTube videos and I'm like working on like coding stuff, but that's not really work in my mind. That's like I'm
You're
tinkering, I'm
still
hacking
working
away.
much more than the normal person, but it's a part of the game and you enjoy it.
Yeah, I enjoy that part. That's not, but I don't put that in the work bucket. And so, like, when you say you're working 12 hours a day, what classifies as work? Like by me talking to you, is this work or is this not work? Like, I'm not really clear. Um,
Right. Yeah, that's a good question. Do you consider this work?
I would say it gets half credit because there's value in me
Yeah.
talking with you, because talking with you, might lead to you and I finding other people who lead to some business thing happening, right? And
Right.
I have to
Yeah.
like plant these seeds not knowing what's going to happen.
But that could
So,
be, and that could be anyone, which is exciting.
like the example I gave you earlier, which is if I'm helping an investor whose son or daughter is trying to start a startup, right? And they're in high school, like, is that work? Like, maybe, maybe not, but then it leads to work, right? So,
Hmm.
so you do it anyway, and so you don't basically doing strict accounting on how hard you're working is it's really a foolish thing, I in my opinion. Like
Okay.
it doesn't really matter.
I think
Um
that most people do it so that they can compare and say that they're working that hard. I don't think that most people posting that they're working 996 are actually doing it. Maybe they are, but or even if they are, they're definitely I don't think they're really enjoying it, but part of the at least from what I've found talking to people, part of the joy in it is simply the fact that they get to post about it and tell people that they're doing it.
yeah, exactly. Um and I think there's like a time and a place for working very intensely. Like if you're just getting something off the ground, like if you're doing like hyper intense work for a few months because you know what to do, you're clearly directed, and now it's about pure execution. I can understand the justification. But when your work becomes more relational,
Hmm.
when it becomes more about ideas and creativity, having spaciousness is a prerequisite to having high performance. So, it depends is the answer. Should I work crazy hours or not?
Right. So I think the idea of having a clear focus that you're working towards is really interesting for you because, from my understanding, you're doing a lot of different things. You have a lot of different projects. And in my life, something I've really needed to work on, and I still am working on, that is going to move the needle so much more, is cutting out and saying no to the things that I don't need to be focusing on, right? And understanding that I don't need to be throwing all my eggs in all these different baskets. Obviously, diversification in terms of I need to be working out, I need to be eating well, I need to be sleeping, but in terms of work and school, I can't have multiple businesses. I'd rather have one business doing well than many businesses not doing as well. For you, I think you're at a point where you can have many businesses doing well, but what are you spending? What are you focusing on? I guess is your focus purely the human aspect of it, and other people do the execution? Do you find that it's difficult because you have to balance so many focuses?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think so. I've surveyed a few people who have done this really well, including Richard Branson. And the answer you'll hear from the Richard Bransons of the world who don't have one business that they're exclusively focused on is that they're not wired to do to build one business. It's not
Mm,
their core expertise to be super deep in one business. And that by having a meaningful role in multiple ventures, it gives them more ideas, it gives them more relationships, and all that benefits their ecosystem. Um,
interesting.
and so generally I find that people are gravitating towards just do one thing, go deep, be the operator or the Richard Branson route. Um, and you kind of know, if you just listen to your body and your intuition, like what feels better for you. And for you, it's very clear for you.
Yeah.
And that's great.
Right.
And you just kind of have to go with what feels clearer to you and trying to fight against that and pick the other thing. It's just not a recipe for success.
Yeah. Well, I think that that's so well said, and everyone can benefit. The idea that you can benefit from having multiple ventures is so true. I've seen that. It's even when they're so separate, like a rock climbing based clothing brand and a podcast on personal development. They're very different things, but they complement each other. You can learn things but not going upstream. That's what one thing I've noticed interviewing people like yourself, where it's very effortless in a sense what you guys are doing, where you're not. battling upstream. You outsource the things that might feel like you're pushing too hard there, but in general, it feels like you're running downhill almost. I don't know if you can if you've observed what I'm saying, because I know that you definitely have uphill moments, but overall, I think it's a really high value skill to be able to do things with the least effort possible.
Yeah, actually, this is another survey I've run with my ultra high performer friends who've built, massive size businesses. And I would say the general consensus I've heard is that 50% of their time still feels like running uphill. It takes a lot of effort. It's not that
Okay.
fun, and it's hard to outsource. It's hard to delegate. 50%,
Yeah, that's a
okay?
lot. Yeah.
It's a lot, but that I'm telling you, this is from like very successful people I know. Um, no one I know is getting to to like, oh, it's like 80% or 100%, unless you're
Right.
like a maybe like an executive coach for like something that, is a bit more straightforward and less complex.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, don't trust what people say on podcasts too closely. The truth and the reality is that people who are successful struggle a lot more than they make it seem. And a lot of these famous, business people and entrepreneurs on YouTube, they're people like, I seek out to have a conversation with to try to understand what's the truth, just for
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
And these are definitely people, and so I try to challenge them, like, hey, like, why don't you just be more authentic with like how hard it is? And they're just
Well,
too scared to
yeah.
do so. They don't want
Yeah, well
to.
they would lose it. They would lose it because I have you heard of Dr. Anne-Laure Leconf? She wrote the
Yeah.
book Tiny Experiments, and she's a neuroscientist, and she talks a lot about she disagrees with purpose and the whole thing around finding your purpose, because she talks about this disillusionment we all have where we believe someone else has found their purpose, but they only have put up an act that they found their purpose because they think other people have found their purpose, and we're incentivized to find our purpose. But everyone's like, oh, they found their I have to have found my purpose, when they didn't really, and it's this whole game, but we're incentivized to do so evolutionarily because we want to be recognized as someone with purpose that has a role, right? And we're all living up here in this like purpose world. We have a purpose, we have a role, when most of us want to be down here where we're like, I'm confused, I don't know either. It's this illusory game we play with ourselves.
Yeah, you are right about that. I'm going to give you a funny example. So I have one friend who's very, very successful, um, and publicly also um, offers coaching and content and teaching on finding purpose. Okay, so this is a
Yeah.
purpose expert, and this purpose expert, I helped this individual map out what I perceive their purpose is and what's lacking from their purpose. And I put together this whole chart using AI. And so I was helping, this person on purpose, even though they teach purpose. And what this shows is that even the purpose experts are still evolving on their purpose. And it's not a
Yeah.
destination you reach. It's like it's just something you're constantly, striving to improve on and evolve and iterate on at all times. And that even for them, they need to learn from people on how to evolve on their purpose.
Hmm. Yeah, it's
That's it,
so
right?
true. And yeah,
Even the purpose
it's
experts have this problem, Jack.
right, and it's scary in a way because so many people want, well, we want to believe. As I said, we're incentivized to believe that these people have found their purpose. It's a great hope to have that people really can reach that, right? It's it's like thinking of enlightenment as a destination rather than a spectrum. It's so hopeful to think, oh, if I do this thing, I can reach this state of pure bliss, or to think of inner peace as some destination rather than, again, a spectrum. Like, oh, if I meditate every day, I'm going to feel great always. And we have this addiction to trying to find this impenetrable state of almost perfection that we never will find. But when people can architect some image of themselves that makes it seem like that, we want to believe it, even if they don't believe it themselves.
Wow, that is probably one of the most profound things I've heard um in really all these podcasts and interviews I've done. That's just like so incredible, Jack. I agree with that completely. And wow, I mean that's a true mic drop what you just said.
Thank you. Yeah. Have you read The Alchemist?
I read elements of parts of The Alchemist, but I've not gone through the whole book.
Really? Okay. That one, I mean, I'd say that that's where I've read it so many times. That's where I get a lot of the things that I end up saying to people. I
Wow.
found what were you gonna say? Sorry.
I mean, it's also challenging to like know these things on one hand,
Right.
intellectually, and then it's another thing to actually feel it and to
Mm,
embody it. And the reason I say that is just because, there, you know, like stoicism is a concept
mm,
I really am into. I read a bunch of stoicism related books. I've, you know, watched a ton of the content on Daily Stoic and all these, podcasts and YouTube people who talked about stoicism. Yet I think the way stoicism is taught is actually not ideal because it tries to intellectually convince you to be stoic, but it doesn't
mm.
help you like actually feel stoic by like teaching you how to somatically um um be at peace. And that's a whole nother
Yeah.
content. We could do another podcast on that, but it's hard to actually integrate this content.
Yeah. I mean, it's something I'm actually really passionate about that idea because I find that so many people nowadays, all their content is just to leave someone with like a 5-second feeling of, oh, I feel a little bit better now, just so that they come back later, but there's not really transformation happening. And I recognize that, and you might disagree, but I think that there used to be transformation in the personal development space with people like Bob Proctor and Earl Nightingale and Jim Rohn. And I've been connecting with people in that space recently a lot, like
Wow.
Blaine Bartlett and Jim Britt, and like they're friends with Brian Tracy, all these names of people, but they're old. And I'm scared that that information is going to be gone with this new wave of information now. So I'm really looking for a way. I'm hopping on a call with a few of them later this week to figure out a way to continue that information into the new age, because I do agree with you where it's really hard to get people to make that somatic change. We're teaching concepts that need to be integrated into our life intellectually and not really providing a medium for people to create that change. And I think it almost creates more frustration because the bigger the gap is between what we know and what we're doing and what we think we're capable of and what we see in our life, the more frustration and suffering we create.
Yeah, that's a really great observation. What's your theory on why that is? Everything you just said. Why is it such that that content is, being less um revealed to the
I
public?
think it's I think it's boring. And I also think that yeah, I think it's boring and it's not owned. A lot of those people, they would always credit others for the information. And nowadays, we really look to people to have all the answers themselves. Whereas Bob Proctor in an interview, he would always say, like, oh, this isn't me. I learned this from XYZ. And it's that humility that we can say that we look up to it, but we might not really be as attracted to it on a social media platform. What do you think
Wow.
about that?
Wow, I think you're spot on correct with that. What that makes me think about is I think a lot of people who set up YouTube channels are incented to inflate their ego. And
Hmm.
so they're less predisposed to wanting to, give credit to other people and do long, ultra long form, boring content. Because on YouTube, it's like TikTok or Instagram, right? People want a dopamine release. They want a fix your problem immediately type of relief.
Yeah.
Um, and doing hard work over a long stretch of time, developing healthy habits, that's not really clickbait content.
Hmm.
The tried and tested true methods of doing X, Y, or Z, it's like you have to just do work. Like you actually have to just show up at the gym every day and do the same
Yeah.
thing over and over and over again.
Right.
It's not compelling. There's no clickbait.
Yeah. There's no shortcuts, and it's
No
annoying because we
shortcut.
always want there to be one. Yeah.
Exactly. But I think what we're gonna see happen, and I gotta run here in a minute, Jack, but I really have enjoyed this. I think that we had that all these great people putting out great content, boring content. Now we're seeing a lot of clickbait and a lot of like this dip in quality, and but I think we're gonna see a reversion back to the tried,
Mm.
true, classic wisdom, because I think people are going to realize that they're not getting the solution they want, and they want something more meaningful. They want something deeper. They don't want, there's a bunch of AI slop now all over the internet, a bunch of, you know,
Yeah.
regurgitated content that like just feels repeated and it doesn't feel actually that interesting and unique and satisfying. And I think people are going to start turning back to that in the next year or two. So I'm
Yeah.
actually not as worried. I'm very optimistic about that
That's
future,
great.
Jack.
I love to hear that. Well, Jess, this has been incredible. Thank you so much for taking the time. I've loved getting to know you and talk to you.
Likewise, thank you, Jack. We gotta hang in person at some point, all right?
I would love that. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Grateful Podcast and staying until the end. You're committed. I respect that about you. If this conversation meant something to you, subscribe to the show and share it with just one person who could benefit from hearing this today. Thank you so much. Stay grateful. Stay hungry. I'm Jack Wagoner. This has been the Grateful Podcast.